Welcome to the McAnulty Method, where we are joining financial expert Frank McAnulty and Colin Sorrells to find out their take on the financial matters that matter most to you. Welcome, guys. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And we had sort of an interesting question today. We had some people write in that wanted to know about Airbnb and that sort of, rent out a room, rent out your house, those sort of platforms. Is it a good way to find out if you might want to save up money, invest in rental properties, or and make a little money right now? So I want to hear what you guys have to say about it, because it's in the news more and more, battling back and forth with hotels who say, hey, you're killing us. And just where you stand on it. Is it a good idea or not? Frank?
Well, it's a good idea and it's not, depending on the circumstance. Let me explain. Friend of mine owns several condos in Hawaii, and they're actually in buildings that are set up for short-term rentals. So it's perfect. The building's set up that way. No one really lives in the building. As a landlord, I think you have to have a responsibility to those around you as well. It's just your own. I'm just going to make as much money as I can. If you put an Airbnb in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and every weekend you're renting it out for people who have parties, which is what a lot of them do, unless it's on the beach or something, that's just not right. I know it's legal. I know it's okay, but it's just not right. And sometimes you shouldn't do what's just not right. I know I keep repeating myself, but over here in Anaheim, two of my nieces own houses literally across the street from Disneyland, and they Airbnb'd them. Let me tell you, Anaheim, first, the neighbors all hated it. Second, Anaheim put in a lot of rules to make sure keep it under control. And the biggest one was a noise ordinance that if people were, I don't know if it was 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, if they were making noise, you called the number, and those people called the owner of the house and said, look, you got 2 minutes to stop this, or it's like a $900 fine.
All right, that'll get people's attention.
And it's not as simple as just listing your property. You're now running a motel. You're now running a hotel. Renting a house to somebody to live there on an annual lease is simple. They move in, hopefully they stay the whole year, they pay rent, they move out, they renew. No big deal. Okay, if I'm managing an Airbnb, well, every time they move out, I got to go in and clean the place. I got to change the bedding. I've got to make sure all the dishes are washed. You're running a motel. Now, granted, you can hire people to do all these things. That takes money away from you. Yeah. So it's quite honest, for me, it's not a real estate business model I want to mess with, because I don't want to work that hard with my real estate. Colin, what do you think?
No, somebody on this show had to have the moral fiber to say it's not right. I'm interested in the financial side of it, because I do remember when the COVID pandemic started, right, and everybody was running these Airbnbs. This was the new real estate. This was how you got in with no money, and the moment the pandemic started and, okay, nobody's traveling, nobody's going on vacation, nobody's renting out Airbnbs, these people with not a lot of cash are getting stuck with, I've got 5-6 properties with mortgages and no way to pay them. And so I'm, very curious what the actual, how much money is there actually be made from renting out something for an Airbnb?
Well, I can only talk to the people I know that have them. My friend who has the 10 condos in Maui, when Hawaii's not locked down, does very well for himself, because they're not beachfront, but they're on the beach or across the street from the beach in Maui. So they're pretty much booked all the time. And they're booked for a pretty good amount of money. So he makes good money out of this. Now, the flip side, though, is other people are figuring out, ooh, you could make good money out of these. So what does that do to the price of the condos? They're going up. They're going way up. And it's not just real estate going up. It's, well, look, if you can make this much money renting this on an Airbnb, it now has a new valuation. So like all gold rushes, I guess, the people that get in early, buy the properties when they're cheaper, can make good money. And it's, to me, it's, you know, once again, it's a numbers game. How much are we going to have to pay for this? What's the mortgage? And yes, when Hawaii was locked down for a year, year and a half, this person was hurting badly because his mortgages are still running. Even worse, the homeowners fees on these buildings were still running. You talk $300, $400 a month homeowners fees on 10 buildings. Now you're $3,000 other fees. You know, it was $10,000, $12,000 a month just above and beyond the mortgages to maintain these properties. But let's face it, this isn't going to happen again. One, I don't think anybody's going to let it happen again. We're not going to get locked down again for a long, long time. So, but it really comes down to how much do you have to pay for the property now? How much can you make? And how much is it going to cost you to manage it? You know, it's, everybody's got their own decision to make. You know, my one niece who had the places over here, they were doing all the maintenance themselves. Guess what? They're now out of the business. It was too much work. Now, did they make money? Yes. But they could find other ways to make money that weren't as much hands-on work.
Have either of you ever rented an Airbnb?
Yep, a couple times.
I have not, but my wife has.
Is there a follow-up to that?
Yeah, just curious about what your experience was.
You know, what is interesting to me, you know, the one I remember, it was actually just a little bit north of Long Beach, you know, and this is a pretty modest home, you know, and they had a little back house, and the back house, I think, was $300 something a night. So we paid like $700 for 2 nights, you know, and I'm thinking here as Frank's talking about, you got your mortgage, your homeowner's fees, you got to pay property tax on it, you know, all the maintenance costs if you want to hire that out. And the first thing that pops in my mind, if you want to do this as sort of your entrepreneurship venture, is how many days a month are you probably going to have to rent these things out just to cover those costs? You know, because I don't imagine, you know, too many times people are renting them out on the weekdays, or, you know.
Once again, it depends on where it is. If it's in Maui, then maybe you're renting it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, there's a lot of places here in like Hollywood and North Hollywood where people come in, they're going to be working for a couple of months, you know, on some show, and they don't want to stay in a hotel. They want something that's a little more homey. So they might rent for 3 months or so, but then they're gone.
But I think Frank makes the interesting point, you know, he briefly touched on it, is the difference. If you're going to buy these properties, the difference between, do I want to Airbnb it, or do I want to look for a long-term tenant who will take it on themselves to cover those maintenance costs because they're the ones living there? Maybe. I don't know. You would know better than me.
Well, yeah, but let's talk about Bill's idea. You know, I know people that have gone into other areas and they say, look, I don't know where I want to rent. I don't know what I want to do. What can I rent? You know, even a room, you know, share a house. You know, some people can do that. You know, you rent a room from somebody for a couple of months, or you rent rooms to somebody. I mean, especially, you know, that might be a way to be able to buy a house. Look, I don't want roommates forever, but I'm gonna buy a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. I can't afford it. Maybe I can bring in people to rent a room, or a couple people to rent rooms that I'm not going to be staying in initially, to help you get further enough along. It's all, what it does is it gives everybody the opportunity to try to do things to help themselves out, which is nothing wrong with that. And I think that's different. If you're renting, Bill, if you're renting to somebody that's coming into town to work at an industry job, odds are they're not going to be throwing wild parties and upsetting the neighbors and all that good stuff. They're there to work. They just want a place they can go home to for a couple, 3 months and be gone.
Yeah, that situation, I think, because again, I see it around here all the time. It seems to work out pretty well, but there's also a house about 2 blocks away that is the classic party house. I mean, they rent, it's Airbnb for a weekend, and you never know what's going to be going on there.
So yeah.
Well, thank you very much, guys. This was actually very interesting. Might delve a little bit more into this. In fact, next time we'll tackle rideshare services like Uber and Lyft, and see what you guys think of that.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, we'll see you next time on the McAnulty Method.